So yesterday we went over parabolas in standard form. Today we're going to work on unit 4.4. And we're still working with parabolas. We're going to be working with parabolas essentially for the rest of this unit. And your instructions today are going to be to graph and label vertex and line or axis of symmetry. Line of symmetry and axis of symmetry are the exact same thing, just depending upon the question. Sometimes they ask for line of symmetry, sometimes they ask for axis of symmetry. It is the exact same thing. Okay, it's just another word for the same thing. Okay, so for example number 1, if I give you the equation y equals quantity x plus 1 squared, so x plus 1 in parentheses squared, minus 2. And just from there, I would like you to graph, label the vertex, and label the line of symmetry. Anybody have any idea where you would begin?
Would you substitute that for a cube and let out?
No, it's not a Q problem.
Would you like use FOIL to make the turn off?
No. Okay, when you first learned how to graph a line, so then you're going to remember how you did it.
I think I remember.
It has nope, before you knew y equals mx plus b, before you knew what those letters meant. What you have to do is you have to plug in points, okay? So here, do you think we would plug in points for x or for y? You can't plug in points for both because we're going to find out which. Okay, you're going to plug in points for x and then we're going to solve for y. So we're going to plug in points for x. So we're going to make an xy chart. So you write the x, then the formula, then we're going to write the y. So we're going to make our xy chart. Okay, and we're going to plug in, let's go from -3, -2, -1, 0, and 1. And I will always tell you what points to plug in. Okay, so you will not have to guess at what points to plug in. I will tell you them. I'm smart. So I decided these are the numbers you're going to plug in. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we are actually going to plug in. So here, if I plug in -3 plus 1 quantity squared minus 2, you actually have to work that out. Okay, so what's -3 plus 1? That would be -2 squared minus 2. What's -2 squared? 4 minus 2 gives you 2. So the actual xy point here would be what? -3, comma 2. That's going to be our first point. Now I want you to keep plugging in. So -2 plus 1 squared minus 2. -2 plus 1 gives you -1 squared minus 2. So that's 1 minus 2. 1 minus 2 is -1. Plug in the next one, -1 plus 1 squared minus 2. So -1 plus 1 is 0 squared minus 2. 0 minus 2 gives you a -2. Plug in 0 plus 1 squared minus 2. So that's 1 squared minus 2. 1 minus 2 is -1. And then last one I want you to plug in is 1. So 1 plus 1 squared minus 2. That's 2 squared minus 2, which becomes 4 minus 2. So let's go back and actually write in our points. Okay, so my first point is going to be at -3, 2. Next point was at -2, -1. Then -1, -2. And we're getting these from the x and then what we actually figured out in the y. Then 0, -1. Then 1, comma 2. So now let's actually graph this equation. Okay, so if I graphed this equation, just make it an xy axis. Okay, and we're going to graph these, plot these points. You're going to be fine. So negative 3, 2, so that means left 3 up 2 is your first point. Negative 2, negative 1. Negative 1, negative 2. Over 0, down 1. And over 1, up 2. Now, if I connected these with a parabola, try to not make a V shape. Okay, try to make it like parabola shaped on the bottom, so more like U shaped on the bottom as opposed to a really pointy vertex. Okay, try to make it more U shaped. So if you do this, can I label my vertex and line of symmetry here? Where do you think is the vertex? What point do you think is the vertex? Right here. So negative 1, negative 2 would be your vertex. Okay, your vertex is at negative 1, negative 2. What else can you label here? The line of symmetry. The line of symmetry would go straight through here. Okay, because you can tell that each point on each side is symmetric around this point. What would the line of symmetry be? What line is this? X equals negative 1. That is how we label our vertex and line of symmetry based on our graph. Okay, so if you graph first, then you can label vertex and line of symmetry. Question, yes, they do have to be labeled because that's what it said in your instructions. Label vertex and line of symmetry. That's your answer, yes. So all we're doing today is just graphing, label vertex, label line of symmetry. Okay, let's try another one. For number 2. Yes, we have 7 examples. I would like you to graph y equals x minus 4 squared plus 1. Y equals x minus 4 squared plus 1. For this XY chart, you're going to plug in x values of 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. Again, I am going to give you the XY values, the x values. So plug in x minus 4 squared plus 1. Change my chart a little bit to put the y over here. So when we first plug in 6 minus 4 squared plus 1. So what's 6 minus 4? 2. 2 squared plus 1, which becomes what? 4 plus 1, which is 5. So my first point, my first XY coordinate will be at 6, 5. Then keep plugging in. So 5 minus 4 squared plus 1. 5 minus 4 is 1 squared plus 1. Make sure you're doing order of operations. We always do what's inside the parentheses first. Excuse me. Then exponents and then addition. So 1 squared is 1 plus 1. So my next y value will be at 2. So that coordinate is 5, 2. Plug in 4. So 4 minus 4 gives you 0 squared plus 1. 0 squared is 0. Plus 1 gives you 1. So my next coordinate will be at 4, 1. Plug in 3 minus 4 squared plus 1. 3 minus 4 gives you negative 1. Square that is 1 plus 1. So we get an answer of 2. So my next coordinate is at 3, 2. Then the last one is 2 minus 4 squared plus 1. So 2 minus 4 gives you negative 2 squared plus 1. Negative 2 squared is 4, plus 1 is 5. So my next coordinate is at 2, 5. Okay, now that I have 5 points, we want to always do 5 points because you want it to be symmetric. So now we can actually plot these. Okay, so my first coordinate was over 6 up 5. Then I was over 5 up 2, over 4 up 1, over 3 up 2, and over 2 up 5. Connect the dots with a parabola shape, so kind of like a U shape, not necessarily a V. And from there, you should be able to label the vertex and line of symmetry. Where would the vertex of this parabola be? 4, 1. Okay, your vertex is at 4, 1. And where do you think the line of symmetry is at? Remember, the line of symmetry, all you really have to do is take the x number from the vertex and put a line through it. Okay? The x coordinate of the vertex is always going to be the same thing as your line of symmetry. Make sure that you write it as an x equals equation. Any questions? Okay, let's try another one. Number 3. Y equals x minus 6 quantity squared plus 8. X minus 6 quantity squared plus 8. Now, before we graph this one and before we find line of symmetry and vertex, I want to go back and look at the first two. Okay, let's go back and look at this first one. Do you notice, well actually let's look at both of them at the same time. Do we notice any correlation or any relationship between the equation that you started with and line of symmetry? Do you notice anything similar about the equation that you started with and line of symmetry? The line of symmetry is what? It's opposite of what? Opposite of what's in the parentheses. Okay? Your line of symmetry will always be x equals h. Okay, so if you remember this, these are in what are called descriptive form. Descriptive form is written as y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. The line of symmetry is always the opposite sign of what's in the parentheses. Okay? Opposite sign for line of symmetry. Line of symmetry is always x equals the opposite sign of whatever the number is in the parentheses. Would that work for number 2? Yes. Opposite sign, there's your line of symmetry. Is that the same thing as number 1? Yes. X equals opposite sign. Now, let's look at the vertex. Do you notice anything similar about the vertex and the original equation? You know that it's always the opposite sign because that's where line of symmetry comes. What do you notice about the y equation or the y portion? It's the same. Okay? There's a rule in descriptive form, which these are in. Okay? Descriptive form basically says to find line of symmetry, you do x equals opposite sign of what is in parentheses. opposite sign of what's in parentheses. The vertex can be found from the original equation if you keep the sign, or excuse me, change the sign, keep the sign. Vertex, change the sign, keep the sign. Okay, so your vertex is always H, comma, K. But the shortcut is basically to just change the sign, keep the sign. So if I did number 3, okay, what would be the line of symmetry for number 3? X equals what? 6. What would be the vertex? Change it, keep it, 6, 8. Now, I can make just a really rough sketch of this, okay? If I wanted to make it at x equals 6, I can just guess, okay, that's x equals 6. Just make it a guess. My vertex is at 6, 8. Make a guess. You don't have to be perfect there. And then what direction would this be opening up? Is it positive or negative at the beginning? It's positive, so that tells you it would open in which direction? Up. So just make a rough sketch like that. As long as your vertex is labeled, your axis of symmetry is labeled, and it's facing the right direction, you're good. You do not have to do the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts, any of that stuff. Okay, so let's try another one. Okay? Say it again. These are all parabolas, but this is what's called descriptive form. Yesterday, we were dealing with things in standard form. Okay? Why did I make you do the first 2 with the points? So that you will appreciate the shortcut. Because if I didn't show you the shortcut, you would have to do points for every single problem. No, I want you to appreciate the shortcut. Now you appreciate it a lot more because you understand the pain and difficulty it would be if I wasn't nice enough to give you the shortcut. So for the answers, yes, you have to label. You have to label the axis of symmetry. You have to graph, label axis of symmetry, and label the vertex. That's what we're asking you to do. Okay? So a couple things that we need to go over. Okay? Parabola. Opening directions. So example 3 was like really quick, okay? Parabola opening directions. Okay? Your parabolas, these are what are called in descriptive form. Okay? This is in what's called descriptive form. Descriptive form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. This is the exact same thing as what we did yesterday. Your a value tells you if your parabola will open up or down. Okay? If the a value is positive, it opens in which direction? Opens up. Okay, so they're going to open up like that. If the a value is negative, that means it opens in what direction do you think? Down. So the direction of opening is based on your a value. Okay, same thing as in a standard form parabola. If it's positive at the beginning, it opens up. If it's negative at the beginning, it opens down. Next thing I want to talk about, so that's your opening direction. Next thing I want to talk about is parabola widths. Okay, the width of a parabola, how wide it's going to be. Okay, parabola widths also depend on the a value. And remember, the a value is just the front number. Okay, the a value is just the front number. There are 3 different widths of parabolas. Okay, there's ones that are kind of like this. There's ones that are about like this. And there's ones that are kind of like this. So, if you were to label these, what would you say that this one is if you were to describe this kind of parabola? that's a skinny parabola. Okay? It's not incredibly, mathematically correct. So if that's skinny, what's this one? This one's fat. This one's fat. The one in the middle is normal. Okay? You could say fat or you could say wide. Okay? This is a normal parabola. So it's in the middle. It's not skinny, it's not fat, it's normal. Okay? The way that or normal, or like a U shape. This one actually looks like a U. This one's a little skinnier. This one's like super wide. So the way that you can tell which one is which is a fat parabola will have fraction A values. Okay? Fractions become fat. Okay? So the fractions, if there's a fraction for your A value, fraction at the beginning of the parabola, of the equation, it's going to be fat. Skinny parabolas have whole numbers that are not zero. Whole numbers not equal to 1. So it could be things like -3, +4, etc. Okay? The positive negative has nothing to do with it. Okay? But if it's a whole number but not 1, it's a skinny parabola. A normal shaped parabola or a normal width parabola has an A value equal to 1. So an A value equal to 1 is a normal sized parabola. Yes, it has to be 1. 1 or -1. It's not possible to be 0 because then it wouldn't be a parabola. That doesn't work, yes. So I know that these are a little abstract. I'm going to do them if I show you some examples, it makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so next thing I want you to do is, again, we're going to sketch, label, line of symmetry, and vertex. So now I don't have to find the x-intercepts. I don't have to find the y-intercepts. I can just make an approximate graph. But because I know different things about their A values, I can make it better. Okay? I know if it's supposed to be fat, or if it's supposed to be skinny, or if it's supposed to be somewhere in between. Are my graphs going to be exactly perfect? No. But a lot of times I don't need them to be perfect. I just want them to be close. Okay? So for number 4, for all the rest of them, we are going to sketch, label, line of symmetry, and the vertex. For example, number 4, y equals negative x plus 2 squared plus 3. Y equals negative times x plus 2 squared plus 3. First thing you always want to do is figure out, what does this front number tell you? Does that tell you it's going to be up or down? That tells you it's going to be facing down. And what is the coefficient there? That's actually a -1. Okay? So it's going to be facing down, and what is its width going to be? Is this going to be a fat, skinny, or normal size parabola? Normal. Okay, a normal sized downward facing parabola. From here, we can also find what? What comes out of the parentheses? The line of symmetry. Okay? Line of symmetry comes from inside this parentheses, and it's always x equals, change this sign, so this will be x equals what? -2. Then the last thing we need to find is the vertex. Okay, and the vertex comes from changing one sign, keeping the other. You always change what was in the parentheses, keep the sign from the end. Okay, so change, comma, keep. What will your vertex be? -2, +3. Okay, anytime something comes out of parentheses, you change its sign. Later this year, we're going to deal with a bunch of other shapes. We're going to do circles and ellipses and hyperbolas and all kinds of stuff. Anytime that comes out of parentheses, you change the sign. Then, I actually want you to sketch this. So, when you sketch this, like I said earlier, it does not have to be absolutely perfect. Okay, so put in your line of symmetry at -2, x equals -2. Label it. Put your vertex at -2 up 3. So that's your vertex. Again, label it -2, 3.
We have to put the line of symmetry.
You do have to put line of symmetry, yes. And line of symmetry is going to help you because then you can see whatever you draw on one side, you need to make it about symmetric on the other side as well. And we decided that this was going to be about what width? Skinny, fat, or normal? Normal. So you just make a not skinny, not fat parabola. Okay, normal is a little bit subjective. So you just kind of make a parabola. Doesn't have to be perfect. If it makes you feel better, you can write normal. You can label that this is a normal size parabola. Okay, because some people get ultra stressed about how am I going to know if you did it right. That is normal. Yes?
With the A, if it's -1, is it the same as 1? Or
We're looking at the value, not the sign. So yes, that is the value is 1. We're looking more at like the absolute value, not the sign of it. Okay? We're not done. Okay? Number 5. Example 5. Yes. Okay. So number 5. Again, I'd like you to sketch and sketch 1/4 y equals 1/4 times x minus 1 squared minus 5. Y equals 1/4 times x minus 1 squared minus 5. So these should go pretty quickly now. First thing we're going to do is decide what direction this opens in. Is this opening up or down? Up. And what else do I know about? It's going to be fat, right? Fractions are fat. So this opens up and it will be fat. Next, we can find what? The line of symmetry. Remember, it always has to be a line. So it does have to be an x equals equation. So x equals 1. Then, from inside here, we change the sign. Keep the sign to find the vertex. Vertex will be what? 1, -5. Okay, change the sign, keep the sign. Then you can draw a graph or sketch. Line of symmetry is at x equals 1. Vertex is at over 1, down 5. Again, yes, I do want these labeled. And then sketch your parabola. And we said that this is going to be what?
Fat.
Fat. Okay, I want you to think of fat kind of like a satellite dish. Okay, that's what it should kind of look like. So fat goes basically kind of like that. That's it. Okay, let's try just a couple more. Okay, number 6. It might be even fatter. Satellite dishes are not circles. They are half a circle, which is a parabola. They're a parabolic shape. If a satellite dish was a circle, it'd be a ball. You don't have a ball on top of your house. Or if you do, whatever. Number 6. Y equals -2 times x plus 3 quantity squared. Y equals -2 times x plus 3 quantity squared. So from here, what do you know? What does this front number tell you? It's going to be facing down and it will be skinny. Okay, what do you know about your line of symmetry? X equals -3 is your line of symmetry. If you don't put the x equals, I will mark you wrong. What is the vertex?
0.
Right. Anytime you have a missing number, we add in a 0. Okay, don't forget, you cannot add 1 to anything. I can't just add a 1 to the front of my paycheck or the end. Okay, it doesn't work. You can add a 0 to the front and it won't change. Okay? No, you can't add a 0 to the back. Nice try. Okay, so the vertex here would be -3, 0. So, anytime you're sketching, to sketch, you need 3 numbers. Okay, to sketch, you need a number in front, which is your A value, number inside the parentheses, and a number at the end. Okay, before you can sketch, you need to have those 3 numbers. So sometimes you have to kind of fill them in. Okay, so this was a +0, just in case you can't see that because it's highlighter. Okay, now we can graph. So we said that the line of symmetry here was at -3. Label it. So x equals -3. Your vertex is at -3, 0, so it's actually going to be on the x-axis, so -3, 0. And we said this was facing what direction? Down, and it is skinny. So down, skinny, parabola. Okay, last one. Number 7. Again, I want you to sketch, label line of symmetry and vertex for y equals 5x squared minus 4. Y equals 5x squared minus 4. I didn't hear you. So here, you have to have a front number, parentheses number, and a back number. Here I have a front number. What would you say this -4 is? Is that a parentheses number or a back number? That's a back number. I don't have any parentheses here. How could you create a parentheses? We know that it's a 5 out front. I want to have something inside parentheses with an x. And this goes at the end. So what could you add in here?
0.
+0. Okay? This has nothing to do with factoring. A lot of people like to say that this is going to be like x plus 2, x minus 2. No. Okay? It's just a +0.
But if you distribute that, then it'd be 5x plus 0. Because 5
Right,
times
but
0
it's supposed to be 5x squared plus 0. The -4 is at the end. Say it again.
It wouldn't be squared.
0 squared is 0.
Oh, it is squared.
So, from here, you can determine what? What does this 5 tell you? That your parabola will be facing what direction? Up, and it is skinny. Line of symmetry is x equals 0 for line of symmetry. And vertex is at what? 0, -4. Okay, vertex comes from change it, keep it. Now, whenever you're going to draw a parabola that has a line of symmetry at 0, okay, instead of making it like super dark and coloring it in, because that's kind of difficult to see, the way that you would label this is you do kind of like a sideways hash mark like that. Okay, that's the way you can label as x equals 0 for your line of symmetry. Okay, that's how you would label that. Then 0, -4 is down here. Come on. Please label it still. That's your vertex. And we said that this was going to be facing what direction? Opening up. And it was skinny, so it stays fairly close and looks like that. Okay, homework for this is going to be worksheet 4, numbers 1 through 15. Okay, you do not have to do any of those table of values things. Okay, you can go straight to the shortcuts for these.